So if I feel I'm not, I say that,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm, I guess somewhere I'm just not emotionally owning the thing. So it's not coming from a really vulnerable, a place where they get it. Because a lot of the time I have to, speak again and again. It's often about their rough and tumble, that just goes on, or the noise that just goes on and on.
Everything the child does is a complete reflection of the parent's unhealed emotion. So what you do as a parent is, before you even speak to the child really, one of the things you need to do as a parent is to address the issue inside of yourself emotionally as to what does it trigger in you. Because our children are perfect reflectors of our unhealed emotion. So the first thing is, what does it trigger in me? So when my children are playing and they're really, really noisy, and I'm trying to concentrate doing something, the trigger usually there is I'm feeling unloved.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? As the parent's feeling unloved.
Yeah.
And then because the parent's feeling unloved, they then make they then yell at the child and say, "Stop that noise," which is actually an avoidance of the parent feeling unloved in that moment. Now, when the parent deals with the unloved emotion, the children will often, if they are very sensitive at the soul level and they don't have much damage themselves, they will very often automatically stop what they're doing. Like I was in a beach in Miami once, and I was laying on the sand, and I don't know if you've ever been to Miami beaches, but there's like 100,000 people packed on the beach. So if you can imagine that, like there's no spare space whatsoever hardly when there's a beach there. And I was laying on the sand, and these two children came up and just started kicking. They were playing, and they kicked dirt all over me. And now, it's tempting for me to just get up and have a growl at them, right? And say, "What are you doing?" sort of thing. But all I did was I just laid there with all this sand getting kicked over me, closed my eyes, of course, and just let it happen, and just let myself feel the emotion that was coming up in me as a result of it. And as that emotion came up, now those two children were being unloving, okay? Now that's obviously something going on with regard to the soul damage that's already there in them, right? However, what I did was I just allowed myself to feel what it was like for me, and I got quite triggered by it actually, and felt initially some anger, and then connected to some sadness inside of me about, I was innocently just laying there not doing anything, and all of a sudden these people are, damaging my space, And as I worked my way through the emotion, within about it would have been 15 seconds after I even started the process, the children instantly stopped what they were doing and just walked away.
Yeah.
Right? And they didn't come back and kick sand over me, although they did kick sand over some other people later on. Does that make sense? Who obviously had the same law of attraction as what I had. So I suppose what I'm trying to illustrate from that is that our children are very sensitive to any emotional damage we have. And it's very important that we focus firstly on the emotional damage we have before we focus on trying to correct our children. Now,
well, that's what's been going on for me.
Yeah.
I've, just the last thing I want to do is to squash them or project at them or get angry. So I don't, but they're just getting away with it.
But there is the issue, though, still of correcting any unloving behaviour. So I know the balance is difficult. But if you, and a lot of times as parents, we get quite frustrated with ourselves here because we know, they're reflecting something again, and they're not listening again.
That's
and
right.
how does that feel to you? And the key is to fully go into that feeling as a parent. So when our child isn't listening to us, for example, interesting, how your child's responding now. What's the response do you feel? Like, for those who can't see, Angela's child is hugging her and giving a kiss, right? And there's an Angela emotion that's driving that. What are you feeling?
I'm just feeling lots of unloved emotions.
Yeah, and that's projected out, and your child instantly loves you. Does that make sense? Like she gives you the love.
So that I don't feel that? Or?
Well, the truth is you're not allowing yourself to feel the unloved emotion. You are actually projecting it outwards. And your child's responding to that projection. Does that make sense? When you own it completely, she'll be able to just sit down next to you and watch you cry without having to give you a hug. I see this happen all the time where, you know, a parent gets into an emotion and the child comes up and hugs them out of the emotion.
Yeah.
And actually the parent doesn't realise in that moment that they're actually not feeling the causal emotion.
Yeah.
They're actually wanting to avoid the causal emotion,
Yeah.
and the child's just reflecting that back to them.
Yeah.
And the parent goes, "Oh, isn't it lovely? They're giving me a hug."
No.
And in reality, the parent's just actually taught the child to
Substitute. Oh.
to actually nurse the parent.
Press. Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because the parent doesn't want to feel their own emotion.
Yeah.
And so I've also seen where we've had conversations, and it's interesting now I've brought that up, she instantly left you. But it's interesting, even while I'm having a conversation with parents, it's wonderful having children, because when you have a conversation with parents, the child reflects every emotion the parent's denying in the conversation as it's occurring. So I've been conversing with people, and while they're connecting emotionally, the children are just playing quietly. All of a sudden, they stop a connection, and all of a sudden the child comes up and pulls their nose and pulls their ears and takes their glasses and all these other things, just distracting them. And then as soon as I address that emotion, the child just goes away without them having to tell them what to do. And it's like a play almost in most cases. But the beauty of having our children in that space is that they are reflecting perfectly to us everything I'm denying right at that instant. And if we can bear that in mind as parents, we can powerfully work through our own emotions. The problem is that as parents, we often are in denial of our own true emotional state. So what was happening just earlier is that you were actually in denial of this state, which is this terrible feeling inside of yourself of, I'm actually feeling very unloved. And what you're doing is you're feeling some grief, but it's not actually causal grief. It's like the grief of please love me, that kind of a grief. And that's being projected to everyone around you. But the most sensitive person that received it was how old is she?
9.
9. She's the most sensitive one in your family to it. And she just comes whammer up, gives mum a kiss and a hug. Now mum's feeling loved. And that whole chance to deal with that causal emotion just is gone in that moment. And so what we need to become aware of as parents is that every single thing that happens between us and our children is the result of a law of attraction, and most of the time, a lot of the time, is the result of an unhealed emotion in the parent. And the child has learnt through this process to respond.
Okay.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
no, it's
Yeah.